Hi and welcome to Lawwiser. With the adaptation of technology, we are seeing increase in electronic record being admitted as evidence in court. To understand this, we have to understand Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act, which talks about the admissibility of electronic record as evidence. To understand this, we have experts with us. We have senior advocate Mr. Vivek Sood. He's an expert in criminal and commercial laws. And we have Mr. Ananya Kumar. He's partner with J. Sagar Associates. Welcome on board. Thank you for taking time out for us. So, Ananya, if you can very briefly explain to our audience what is Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act?
Good evening, Sanya. Let me begin by saying that it's a pleasure to be here with Mr. Sood and yourself to discuss and explore Section 65B of the Evidence Act. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this discussion. Let me straight away get to your question. And to answer it, I believe it's necessary to look a little bit at the history of Section 65A and 65B, which will help us understand what the provisions are and their importance. Now, as you may be aware, prior to 2000, there was no specific law dealing with electronic records in India. That is not to say that electronic records themselves did not exist, just that there was no statutory recognition of the concept. Therefore, if a party sought to rely on an electronic record in a matter, the courts looked to sections 59 to 65 of the Indian Evidence Act to decide whether the electronic record was admissible as evidence and what weight should be given to it. Now, sections 59 to 65, just to again give a primer, basically provide for the proving of facts through either oral evidence or documentary evidence. And insofar as the contents of documents themselves are concerned, the Act provides that such contents can be proved either by primary evidence, which is by production of the document itself, or by secondary evidence, which would include either a copy of the document or even may be by way of an oral account of the contents of the document by a person who has seen this document. Now, while things were so, in October 2000, the Information Technology Act came into force. And one of the reasons behind the introduction of this legislation was to provide legal recognition for transactions that were carried out by means of electronic data interchange and other means of electronic communication. Of course, with the advent of emails and so on and so forth, e-commerce becoming a big thing. In parallel, it was also recognized that the existing provisions in the Evidence Act may by themselves be insufficient to deal with the admissibility and the proof of such electronic records, largely due to the fact that there is a higher probability of tampering of such records or manipulation of such records. So in these circumstances, the preamble to the Information Technology Act also recognized the requirement of amendments to various other laws, including to the Indian Evidence Act. Section 92 of the Information Technology Act in 2000, read with the second schedule, therefore provided for amendments to the Evidence Act, which resulted in turn in the introduction of Section 65A and 65B into the Evidence Act. Changes were also brought about at this time to the definition of evidence itself in Section 3 of the Evidence Act, and also certain consequential changes in Section 59, if I recall correctly. And certain definitions from the Information Technology Act were imported into the Evidence Act itself. Having said so, now let's just come to a broad outline of what Section 65A and Section 65B deal with. Now, Section 65A is a short provision which provides that the contents of electronic records may be proved in accordance with what is set out in Section 65B, and that is all that provision says. Section 65B, which is the substantive provision, begins with a non-obstante clause and sets out that notwithstanding anything else contained in the Evidence Act, insofar as information contained in any electronic record is concerned, when such information is either printed on paper or stored or recorded or copied onto an optical or magnetic media produced by a computer, then such printed information or the information which has been stored or recorded will also be deemed to be a document that is admissible in evidence. Provided, however, that the requirements as to the information itself, as well as the computer in question from which the information has been taken, as specified in section 65B, stand satisfied. Effectively, therefore, what section 65B does is to provide for a special provision and a special procedure by which electronic records can be led in evidence and can thereafter be relied upon by a party in support of its case. So that in a nutshell is what section 65A and B are, Sanya.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you for taking us through the background of Section 65B of the Evidence Act and, explaining in a very crisp form what it is. Also, sir, if you can throw some light on the admissibility of the evidence, if you can, very briefly explain that to us as well.
I'm very happy to be on this platform with Ananya and Sanya. Before I go on to the admissibility of electronic evidence, let me explain the principle of admissibility. Now, admissibility in the law of evidence means permissibility to lead evidence. Now, there are two important concepts in the law of evidence: admissibility and relevancy. Admissibility means permissibility. Relevancy means connectivity of the fact or the evidence to the dispute in hand. Now we need to satisfy these twin conditions before any evidence is admitted in the court of law. Therefore, the piece of evidence has to be admissible, and then it has to be relevant also. Now, just to explain these two concepts, the difference in the two concepts, there is admissibility means, for example, a confession made to a police officer during investigation by the accused is inadmissible in evidence. Although it may be relevant, he may confess to the crime, but it is not permitted to be led in the court. It is inadmissible in evidence. Relevancy is the connectivity of the fact. Now, with this background, I go on to the admissibility of electronic evidence in the context of Section 65B. 65B talks of admissibility of an electronic record, and it also talks of the relevancy aspect, that if an electronic record is admitted in evidence in accordance with Section 65B, which my colleague Mr. Ananya Kumar just explained, then the contents of that electronic record can also be read in evidence. So here comes, the principle of admissibility. Now, I argued a very interesting matter in the Supreme Court in 2017, Sonu versus State of Haryana, and I appeared for the State of Haryana. In that case, it was a criminal case, and where the CDRs, the call detailed records of the accused who were communicating with each other, that the question was whether the CDRs were admissible in evidence. Now, 65B certificate had not been filed by the prosecution. So it was argued on behalf of the accused that the CDRs cannot be led in evidence. Now, on behalf of State of Haryana, I argued that since the CDRs, when they were being exhibited, when they were being placed on the record, no objection was taken by the accused. That 65B certificate has not been adduced in evidence. So therefore, the principle of waiver will apply. So the Supreme Court, framed this issue, and the Supreme Court laid down the principle of procedural admissibility. That, one is inherent in admissibility. For example, a confession made to a police officer, even if it is exhibited on record, even if it is brought on record, it is inherently inadmissible. It cannot be read in evidence at all. Whereas in the case of electronic records, if an objection is not taken, so the principle of waiver applies. So the admissibility spoken of in Section 65B is actually the procedural admissibility. Section 65B does not talk of inherent inadmissibility. So this is the principle of admissibility. The moment the conditions of 65B are fulfilled, the electronic record in question is admitted in evidence and the contents thereof can be read in evidence. So this is the principle of admissibility in the context of Section 65B.
Thank you for explaining admissibility of the evidence, especially with this ruling. It makes it all the more clear. And, Ananya, if you can throw some light on the interpretation of this section, how the Supreme Court has interpreted it over the years, to what is the latest stand on this section?
To answer that, I think we'll have to look at about 5 or 6 judgments from 2004 till a bit earlier this year, Sania. And the first landmark decision on Section 65B was delivered by the Supreme Court in the case of Navjot Sandhu versus the NCT of Delhi. This was a 2004 decision and it was a bench of 2 judges, if I recall. Now, in this case, the Supreme Court had held that even if a certificate under Section 65B is not produced as per the requirements mentioned in subclause 4 of the section, electronic evidence would not per se become inadmissible. As per the court, such electronic evidence could still be proved in terms of Sections 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act as secondary evidence. Now, there was some criticism of this decision on the ground that it was an expansive interpretation which tended to dilute the legislative intent behind the introduction of 65B. Be that as it may, the law laid down in the Navjot Sandhu case held good and was followed for, I think, nearly a decade. In 2014, however, a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court in the case of Anwar PV versus PK Bashir expressly overruled the Sandhu decision. Now, briefly, in the Anwar case, it was held that Section 65B of the Evidence Act was a complete code in itself, insofar as evidence relating to electronic records was concerned, and that the general law under Section 63 and 65 would not be relevant when it came to the admissibility and relevance of electronic records. The court therefore ruled that an electronic record would not be admissible in evidence unless the requirements under Section 65B were satisfied, and a certificate as provided for under the provision was accompanied the electronic record in question. Given the fact that in 10 years there were only 2 decisions of great note, between 2014 and 2019 there was a relative flurry of pronouncements by the Supreme Court on the issue actually. So firstly, in 2015, there was the case of Tommaso Bruno versus the state of Uttar Pradesh, where the Supreme Court observed that secondary evidence of the contents of an electronic record could in fact be laid under Section 65. Now, this was contrary to what had been held in the Anwar case, and in fact, the Anwar case wasn't even expressly referred to. They referred to the Navjot Sandhu case instead in Tommaso Bruno. Then there was the 2017 decision in the case of Sonu versus State of Haryana. I'm not going to go into detail because the expert on that case is with us on this panel, and I think he's explained it very well what happened in that decision. But what followed was the 2018 case in Shafi Mohammed versus the state of UP again. Now, in the Shafi Mohammed case, the Supreme Court disagreed entirely with the Anwar judgment and held that Section 65A and 65B of the Evidence Act were by way of a clarification and are purely procedural provisions. They also held that if the electronic evidence in question is authentic and relevant, the same could be admitted subject to, of course, the court being satisfied of its authenticity. And the procedure for admissibility would depend on the fact situation, such as whether the person producing the evidence was in a position to furnish the certificate under Section 65B or not. The court concluded, therefore, by holding that Section 65A and Section 65B were not a complete code and could not be held to be mandatory, particularly if one were to look at a situation where the party relying on an electronic record was not in possession of the device from which the document was produced. So if I were to sum it up, the primary conflicts that were seen during this period with respect to 65B were whether the requirements and conditions stipulated therein were mandatory, whether the sections were a complete code in themselves, or whether Section 63 and 65 of the Evidence Act could be brought into play with respect to electronic records in certain circumstances. There was also a little bit of ambiguity as to if the provision is mandatory, when the certificate needs to be filed. Now, the existence of these conflicts, particularly those caused by the judgments in the Anwar case and the Shafi case, were recognized by the Supreme Court in 2019, and the scope of Section 65B was referred for consideration to a 3-judge bench in the case of Arjun Panditrao Khotkar versus Kailash Kushanrao Gorantyal. The judgment in this matter was finally pronounced earlier this year, in July 2020. Briefly, if one were to look at the conclusions in the judgment, which is the latest word on the point, I always hesitate to say last word on the point, but which is the latest word on the point, they can be summarized in 5 points. Firstly, the court held that the certificate under Section 65B(4) is a condition precedent to the admissibility of evidence by way of an electronic record. In this respect, therefore, the court upheld the decision in the Anwar case, and holding the decision in the Shafi case to be per incuriam, it overruled this latter decision. Secondly, the court also held that that oral evidence as to the contents of a document cannot act as a substitute for the requirements in Section 65B. On this point, therefore, the finding in the Tommaso Bruno case was overruled. Thirdly, since the section is silent on the stage at which the certificate must be furnished, the court held that wherever the certificate could be procured by the person seeking to rely upon an electronic record, such certificate should accompany the electronic record. However, there was a little bit of leeway given here. So in case a defective certificate was filed, or if a certificate had been demanded by a third party and not been produced by that party, they said that the trial court could summon the competent persons referred to in Section 65B and require the production of a certificate of the nature that is required. And this could in fact be done at any stage prior to the conclusion of the trial. Fourthly, they came to the conclusion that a certificate may not be necessary if the original document itself is produced. So, for example, the mobile phone from which certain data is being printed out, or where the recording has originally taken place. If the person who owns and controls that mobile phone steps into the witness box, a certificate may not be required because that itself is the original, so to say, of the document. However, if the electronic record was on a network or a system of computers, in that case, the only way of proving it was to use what is set out in Section 65B(1) and 65B(4). That's where we stand basically today, Sanya, on the interpretation of Section 65B. And as an aside, I'd just like to add, there is a supplementing opinion in the Arjun Pandit Rao case by Justice Ramasubramanian, which makes for very interesting reading because it sets out, the position in various other jurisdictions today. And it has actually shed light on how these jurisdictions have fine-tuned their legislations when it comes to electronic evidence. And there is a recommendation that India should also be looking at doing this because it's been 20 years since the provision was enacted.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you for summarizing these cases, which actually hold value when it comes to Section 65B. Also, I would request Vivek sir if he can share some interesting insights on the practical applicability of these Section 65B for the benefit of in-house counsels, lawyers, and businesses.
I'll make 5 or 6 points on the practical application of 65B. One is 65B will not apply to cases where the electronic record in question is a copy of a copy. So 65B applies only to the first copy of the original, meaning thereby, the original is the first generation of the electronic record in the computer system. So if that was to be copied, and then a printout was to be taken of that copy. It's a second copy. So 65B will not render it admissible in evidence. So it has to be the first copy. Because you asked me about the practical application of 65B, and I am a defense counsel, or I am a counsel for the plaintiff or the defendant. So I have to go as per the brief. So, in one of the cases, we have taken this objection successfully. So it should not be a copy of a copy. Secondly, the objection must be taken. Now, for example, if an evidence is adduced of an electronic record in the absence of 65B certificate, the objection must be taken by the lawyer at the time when the electronic record is being exhibited. So, lawyers have to be very diligent in taking the objection. You cannot take the objection even in cross-examination. I'm doing a very interesting matter where, evidence was led in the absence of 65B. But in the cross-examination, the question was asked to the witness, have you brought the 65B certificate? It's not good enough. If you don't object the absence of 65B, when the evidence is being led, you have waived the objection. That's what Sonu versus State of Haryana has said. And I'm fortunate that Sonu versus State of Haryana has not been touched by Arjun Pandit Rao. So I can say that it still holds the field, to the extent it lays down the principle of waiver. The third point I want to emphasize to the legal community and the business community is that please don't take Section 65B as a mere formality. Now I see in the multitude of the cases you have it's like a hanky, accompanying a suit. You get a 65B certificate, 2-3 lines, a cryptic certificate. Please take 65B seriously. Please read the provision. Please understand the conditions and appropriately frame the 65B certificate. Now, I find many a times in cases, the person who did not handle the computer system in question, or who did not generate the electronic record, he is coming into the witness box. Some clerk is sent, or somebody from the office is sent, ye le jana 65B proof kar dena. Now, that is in the nature of hearsay evidence. The person who's concerned with the computer system in question, and the person who generates the electronic record, who generates the computer output, who is managing the computer network and computer system, must step into the witness box to prove the 65B certificate. The next point is, in my opinion, although I have not found a pronouncement on this, 65B, since it talks of admissibility of an electronic record, in my view, it will apply to arbitration proceedings as well. Although in arbitration proceedings, you have that the strict principles of law of evidence will not apply. But since 65B touches on the admissibility of an electronic record, therefore, in my view, 65B certificate is necessarily to be exhibited even in arbitration proceedings. Now, the next important point I want to make is, if the electronic record is admitted by the other party. Now, I am doing a matter where, we did not put in the 65B certificate of some photographs in a landlord-tenant dispute. But since the photographs have been admitted by the other party, 65B certificate is not necessary. Even if we apply Arjun Pandit Rao, because as Ananya put it rightly, Arjun Pandit Rao gives some leeway that, for example, if it is impossible to bring in a 65B certificate, as he explained, then it is not to be brought in. So therefore, if a piece of evidence is admitted by the other party, 65B certificate, is not required. Last but not the least, 65B is not the end all of the law of evidence. It is only a component of the law of evidence, which means merely bringing a 65B certificate is not the end in itself. You have to prove authorship of the document. And after complying with the conditions of 65B, what is proven is that the contents are proven, but the incident or the event stated in the electronic record is not proven. For example, if I write a letter to Ananya in which I describe an event that we met at so-and-so restaurant, at so-and-so place on so-and-so day, and this is what transpired between us. So by complying with that 65B certificate, what is proven is that I have written a letter to Ananya through an email or in electronic format, and that letter contains the contents. But the fact that whether we met at that restaurant, the event that is stated in the letter has to be separately proven. So these are some of the practical tips which I can give to the audience on the practical application of 65B.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you, Vivek sir. Thank you for taking time out for us. This actually really helps our audience in understanding Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act. Thank you.